As usual, I was up early that late September morning. I've always loved watching it rain and storm from my front porch. That morning, the waves of wind and rain whipped across the field and roared through the trees. It was breathtaking. I knew it was bad enough to have to get up quickly to go inside a few times, but I didn't know how bad. After the worst had passed, I noticed a few cars and trucks just down the street pulling in and then turning around, and then a few trucks that pulled in and parked on the road. I suited up and walked down to see what was up. That's when I began to realize what Helene meant to our town. When I got to Tony, just past Miss Murray's, I saw a half dozen men, maybe more, already working, sawing and hauling. Each one doing all he could, but no one trying to do too much. I walked up, exchanged a few handshakes, and began to do my small part. The storm hadn't even passed. It was still rainy and gusty, but the true measure of Boiling Springs was already on display. And as soon as that road was cleared, the men took off in different directions to see where they could help next. This was going on in pockets all across town without hesitation. Neighbor was helping neighbor. I set out walking, taking whatever paths I could. Beeson was completely blocked and Gordon not much better. I saw the 100-year oaks down at the Elliots and the roadways and power lines down on Main. I saw the multiple trees down across campus and the many that had fallen on my dad's old work sheds, just missing the roof where my mother lives. I was heartbroken. It's weird to say, but it was the first time I truly felt the weight of serving as mayor. I felt the burdens. I really did. Beyond the burdens, though, was the inspiration. The servant hearts of our people carried on beyond those first few hours and soared as churches organized meals and served as collection centers. Citizens and businesses worked to donate and distribute, each making a point to check on all around them. Local restaurants provided good, warm food to first responders and linemen. Without power for the week, we gathered at Town Hall with food trucks and fellowship. As we sat for hours and hours, my daughter Sydney and I met so many people from all around. And though there were many stories of hardship, the spirit was never negative. Instead, there was a pulling together, a community, strong and steady. As we rallied and began to make our way through our own rubble, our people turned their hearts and skills, their prayers and materials towards those to the west who had experienced true devastation. Though I have fallen, I will rise, the prophet says. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. Of course, there was nothing quite like that storm, and hopefully will not be again in our lifetimes. But I do want to pivot to a second topic, if you'll allow. Our town slogan includes one town, one university, one community. The reality is that Gardner-Webb University makes up around 1/5 of the land in Boiling Springs. And on that 1/5, I grew up riding bikes and hearing my dad tell stories about Bill Ellis and the Running Bulldogs. My mom and dad were dorm parents at Campus House when I was, as my dad would say, just a pup. And so I quite literally grew up on campus. The truth of the matter is that I had many sets of parents and role models during those formative years. The good people that worked at the business office and financial aid with my mom, with names like Lutz and Pyron and Wallace and Powell. The Greens took care of me at their acres, and the Washburns and Harmons. I shouldn't begin to list names because we're aiming to be out of here by noon, and I could go on for days. It's true, though. The people who worked at the college and lived in town were a family, one community. As I began my own college journey, I was guided and molded by professors Eastman and Hambright, Jessup, Partain, Carskadden, and Yelton. I continued to grow up on campus. I met the love of my life, Sarah, in philosophy class, and we were married by Lake Hollifield at sunset as she rode around a horse-drawn carriage driven by Mr. Klein Hamrick. We raised our kids in and around the university, and Sarah and I were blessed to be able to minister to dozens and dozens of young running bulldogs over the years, having them in our home and visiting them on that 1/5 of land, living life together. I've said it before, there are not many folks around who are as much Gardner-Webb and Boiling Springs as I am. Running for mayor in 2021, one of my great desires was to see the relationship between the town and the college flourish and thrive. And I am elated and beyond hopeful at the prospects of our own renewed partnership as we travel through 2025. One town, one university, one community. Before I close, I need to take a moment to recognize our terrific council members. Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Litton, Councilman Thomas, Councilman Green, Councilman and former Mayor Ellis, and Councilman Wood. These men have no other interest than doing what's best for Boiling Springs. I am honored to be a recipient of their wisdom and have deep appreciation for their patient yet forward-looking vision for our town. I do hope you all will continue to serve because our town is better for your efforts. And to our town manager, Zach Parker, to our wonderful department heads and staff, each and every day you work with excellence and professionalism. The positive culture you create in the town hall and around town is infectious, and your dedication does not go unnoticed. I want to thank you personally for what each of you do. We have many exciting projects that are due finally to begin in 2025. The funding for these major projects comes almost exclusively from state and federal grants, saving the Boiling Springs taxpayer a tremendous amount. The long-range planning and execution of these projects and the day-to-day implementation is a great credit to the caliber of people that work in this building. The projects and partnerships that we have cultivated will surely make 2025 a year to remember in Boiling Springs. My dad was a theologian, a philosopher, and he would often, in telling me to remember who I am, cite the verses of Micah 6:8. The state of our town is strong for all the reasons mentioned above, but most of all because the people of this town seek to act justly. You all love mercy, and your desire is to walk humbly with God. I have lived in the midst of this goodness my whole life. I continue to reap the benefits of a community of people who are faithful to this calling. Thank you, and may God bless Boiling Springs, North Carolina.